Thanks so much. So, yep, it's Sunday Fun Day here at the Overwatch League, and Legday and I are very excited to cast our first esports boxing match between these two next teams. It's the Houston Outlaws versus the LA Gladiators. And Legday, you know that Houston were the pioneers of Doomfist, the Danktae, right? What do you think of Houston's chances in this match? Because Custa has smelled something in the air and has predicted Houston to take this match.
Yeah, Custa's licked his fingers like, yes, the wind says everything's coming up Outlaws. Let's have a quick look at the roster they're going to be bringing in today. Both of these teams, Lemon, are sitting at 6-2 at the moment. For the Houston Outlaws, like you said, they were one of the pioneers of the Doomfist alongside Atlanta Reign. Both these teams early on in the kickoff clash really started to believe in the power of that tank, and Dante's in again, even if in the mid-season madness he is sharing a little bit more playtime with Piggy as Sigma comes into vogue for some of the more pokey compositions that we see. And speaking of poke, while there may be a little bit less evidence for Custer's current prediction, there's plenty of evidence as to why Merit is going to be a monster coming into this. Look at the Sojourn stats of Merit. We know that Sojourn has kind of become the hero du jour of the mid-season madness, and Merit has proven to be one of the most deadly on the block thus far. First in 3 separate key stats, including their railgun kills, hero damage, and of course the deaths. But Lemon, it's worth noting as well that Houston Outlaws as well as LA Gladiators, they've been able to farm these stats against some what you might call lesser teams.
Yeah, Houston Outlaws having a pretty decent schedule against Vancouver and Washington. Maybe Gladiators looking really inflated too, only facing the Paris Eternal and the Vancouver Titans in their first 2 matches post-kickoff clash. But another point, so you've highlighted Merit, but also there's the Pelican and of course Dante himself getting to play a bit of DPS. So when Danktae is not on Doomfist, it seems like Houston are experimenting with different Tracer players too. So Dante and Pelican have been seen playing both. It'll be interesting to see the results of those findings as the season goes on. It could be a question of just which hero pool do you want more? Maybe Dante more on the flank specialist, Pelican with more ranged heroes like the Hanzo. Who knows? But let's talk about their opposition. It's the LA Gladiators, who have not lost a match since the first 2 of the season. Now, we're not talking about kickoff, but they won that too. So who? They've also adopted Punchy Mean Tank Guy. So as the desk said, Reiner can really do it all.
Yeah, they have adopted the Doomfist. A lot more of that playtime that Reiner's had on it has been recent, and Reiner, of course, played a lot of the Winston and the Reinhardt in the kickoff clash as well. And Reiner's flexibility to be able to play all these different main tanks, as well as a new one, has been critical to Los Angeles Gladiators' success. I actually predicted them to win the kickoff clash on the basis that they were the most versatile team there, that on any map they could bring out the optimal strategy for the topography and be able to create enough space for Shu, Skewed, and Kevster to pop off. But I think what we didn't expect, Lemon, is for Padapan to come out and be such a tour de force on the damage. He struggled in the early season, but recently and in the kickoff clash itself has come up with multiple player of the matches and is getting some time on the Sojourn alongside Kevster.
Especially, yeah, Padapan had the player of the match against the Vancouver Titans, and Padapan will be seen playing the Sojourn only if the team needs Kevster to play Tracer. That is their premier and elite Tracer specialist. Maybe I'm sure Padapan can use it too, but Kevster is also their main Sojourn. But I love the overlap that Kevster and Padapan have, and it's kind of like Kevster gets to pick his choice of hero and Padapan fills in the gaps, and that's what you need out of your flex DPS. It is a double push week, by the way, so we will be starting on New Queen Street, and I know one of these teams have played New Queen Street before.
Yeah, we have some data in the mid-season madness for Los Angeles Gladiators here, playing a little bit of a Doomfist alongside a Tracer Sojourn. Houston Outlaws have only played 1 push map thus far in the mid-season madness, and that was a Colosseo, so thus far we are lacking data on New Queen Street. As Los Angeles Gladiators, everything seems up to par normally. Shu and Skewed coming in as the double flex support. We do have, of course, Funny Astro on the bench for Los Angeles Gladiators. If they want to turn up the volume, get a little bit faster on that Lucio. For now, though, Shu and Skewed, they're going to be in many positions here on New Queen Street with long sight lines available that are going to allow them to stay in relative safety while pushing out huge amounts of damage, because we know how famed these guys are for their accuracy.
And when it comes to New Queen Street, there's just so many flanks on this map. Tracer is almost demanded. There's also some parts of range. Here is the middle statue where the hockey guy is. That's where a lot of teams are going to station their first fight, at least for their tanks, because having that slight high ground control is great for your range DPS, as Patapan already gets a first pick, getting some charge potential off of the early engage from Dante, who gave up the statue control immediately. So off that one pick, Houston disengage, and Gladiators get bot control and also top tunnel control.
It's interesting at the moment, Skewed and Shu appear to be playing a little bit further apart, and we have Patapan almost ready. Unable to score a critical hit here. The question is, how can Houston Outlaws really get onto this backline? Because Dante at the moment is very concerned with trying to outdo Reiner instead.
Reiner got down to 2 ticks, and Patapan has just been left in the window, unpressured by Pelican. I'm sure Pelican was trying to approach, and he got sniped. He's probably gonna have to take more creative routes to accessing Patapan, who's had 2 first bloods back-to-back for the Gladiators.
Scoot is also moving up a little bit here as well to get these closer angles and to potentially be able to chase Dante and Pelican when they try and take a little bit more physical cover. At the moment, Kevster all the way in the back. Oh, at least Scoot's been caught out.
Oh, and an anti-nade actually saved Skewed, and he... that didn't work out. Shu still died.
No.
It did not. Gladiators still ended up killing more. They're missing out on Shu, but it's been 3 fights in a row for the Gladiators.
There's a world where maybe Scoot was a bit of a bait, a tasty morsel. Kevster was already running interference in the Houston Outlaws backline there, and we saw that Shu had the line of sight onto Scoot from the safety of that central tunnel. So potentially there, Los Angeles Gladiators are trying to make Houston bite off more than they can chew, and there's the first checkpoint left.
Now, Outlaws still working on ults to just get their first fight win. Haven't had a single push thus far. Dante just having his flanks cut off. Gladiators have really good scouting. Patapan, as the overclock, has sniped Iris. At least Reinhardt's positioning, or did have positioning, on the cart against Dante. Lastro with the Transcendence to help stabilize the team. Houston have warded away the primary engage factor of Gladiators. And now it's a duel of the DPS where Merit's overclock really took over.
Yeah, we know that Merit has some of the top railgun accuracy in the league right now. Unfortunately, a miss there means that Shu is going to stay alive for the moment and, of course, keep Reiner up in tandem. Los Angeles Gladiators actually invested a huge amount of ults in that previous fight because they believed in the value of claiming that checkpoint. And that's exactly what they've done. Now they can play more of a trolling the objective kind of play, where they will take the better geographies for their fights, where Reiner can make easy engages and potentially get environmental kills.
Houston's only fight win was just to get them back to the neutral point, and it starts with another first blood from Patapan. So it's where is that Pelican pressure? He's going after the supports. He misses the pulse bomb, and Shu and Skewed have been able to preserve and peel for themselves quite well. Mechanically just so gifted. It makes it very difficult for Pelican to approach, but he's more looking at the supports of the Gladiators.
Yeah, Pelican with more of a throwaway pulse bomb there, was hoping to stick Shu, of course, but not good enough of a throwing arm. Still alive in the back here, could actually get a crunch down with Dante, and I think that Houston Outlaws have really been lacking in being able to get onto the same target all at once.
Yeah, Pelican is going to continue to go after the supports, and Kevster at least hits Lashro with the pulse bomb, and the kills continue for the Gladiators. Patapan just feels unmatched. Whenever the Gladiators start to lose, it's due to Reiner getting picked off, and then the dominoes usually fall after that. But it's an 80-meter push for the Gladiators, and Kevster has already found Pelican all the way at the back, so Outlaws have relieved some pressure, but they're just not out of the woods yet.
Iris spotted Lastro in the crosshairs of Kevster as well, getting so low, and Kevster's too damn good for this. Reiner's arrived as well. With those forward spawns, Lemon, the pace of the fight is going faster and faster and faster for the Glads.
And now the Outlaws are losing out on some healing. Iris is coming back. Gladiators have a nano engage. I'm sure Reiner wants to take an aggressive position, but is just trying to assess where the Outlaws are coming from. Most of them coming through the left doorway. Reiner will be ready to receive the nano, unless they want to give it to Patapan, because he's performing really well on the Sojourn. For now, Gladiators are staying patient. They've had to nade themselves. Shu delivers the nano, but I don't think it even went through, and that's the patience not paying off in this case, as the Outlaws get hit by a Transcendence of Skewed, who's now trying to overwhelm the Outlaws just based off of resources. Dante's making the space and is not finding any targets. Kevster is discovered 1 HP going back to the barricade, and Outlaws, they put out the fire, but the ship is still sinking.
Nah, the ship is sinking, Lemon, but thanks to the extra 2 minutes we get on push maps in the kickoff clash, there is plenty of time here for Houston Outlaws to try and turn this around, just as we saw the Florida Mayhem do earlier today against the San Francisco Shock. Okay, that's quite an early ult there.
Oh, he thought he was safe in the mini room, and I like that Dante gets nanoed, but he still snipes at Iris, so Patapan is okay for now. Merit's gonna duel him. Dante comes from the back, and Patapan has still not taken any damage. Now the Disruptor shot at least wards Patapan out of that room, and he'll take position on top Metro. Good frag from Lastro. Gladiators are finally weakened. And now there's the resources coming in with the Transcendence, but the burst of the Pulse Bomb is still too much. The Gladiators take back the fight.
Everyone grouped in for a chance to get that 300 healing per second, but it doesn't matter when you're that close. Kevster can blow you all away with the burst damage of the Pulse Bomb. We talk about how the headshot from a railgun can kill people through transfer. Same can be said of that Tracer ultimate. Shu, once again, almost has the nano boost ready to go here, and Merit's going to have to get some real value out of this overclock to stop the Gladiators' momentum as everyone's moved forward.
This has just been not a close map so far, 105 meters to 1. Houston, they win fights just when they have the respawn advantage, when they're stuck in their base, but can they win in the neutral? The one time they had the first blood, then you have the Kevster double pulse bomb. Here's an overclock from Merit. He's looking for targets, maybe locks onto Reiner, but wants to deal with Patapan and Kevster, and I think the job has been done. Houston will win the fight at the neutral point and get more progress than one.
And the good news Houston Outlaws here is that was a relatively cheap fight. Just to be overclock invested, and Merit still has a majority of his functionality without that ultimate available. Pelican on the other side, getting rid of Shu first would be huge. If you could mess with the overall game plan of the Gladiators, using this nano for an engage by getting rid of Shu early, you can force Gladiators to cede away more ground.
Nano to Reiner, who's been slept. Shu has been stunned up by Dante, so this is the moment for the Outlaws to carry this momentum. Trades back and forth. The Gladiators don't have healers, and Houston Outlaws are finally starting to take way. 20 meters now, you still have a huge gap to close, and only one ultimate to really make it happen next.
Wearing a little bit of anti-synergy there as well. Pelican going for a stick, and Dante actually punched people out of the way of the bomb. The comms need to be cleaner for the Houston Outlaws, at least between Dante and Pelican. They're supposed to be a diving duo, Lemon, but at the moment they are two separate ships going in different directions as Kevster looks to set up a pulse bomb.
And he's delivered before, a double kill on his last one. He knows the supports of Outlaws are on the top of Metro. It connects onto Lastro. He's gone. The nano was maybe given to Lastro to try and save him, but it was too late. Iris wastes it, and Dante desperately needed it because you have Patapan, who's already killed 2 this fight. Gladiators just look unstoppable.
Unfortunate there for Iris. We have learned twice in this map that Nano does have a travel time as minuscule as it is, and in both cases the Annas have been punished for not getting the postal insurance. Reiner almost has a Meteor Strike here, and that means he can get so much more aggressive, Lemon. Get out of jail for free. Just remove yourself to the skybox and come down wherever you would like, and that means you can use all of your cooldowns to try and deal maximum damage to the Houston Outlaws backline. As the Houston Outlaws, they're running low on time here. Only 1 minute remains, and maybe absolute perfection.
Kevster's on the hunt, and Iris is 1 HP. Lastro will give the orb, but trying to distance himself away. Iris still on his feet. Important for the Outlaws as Merit takes control of the long street with a great snipe on the Patapan. Now on the top of this tunnel, he gets warded away by Reiner's engage. Reiner has slept, and as soon as he's woke, he uses Meteor Strike to reposition to safety, and now knows the rest of the Houston Outlaws are around the corner. And with Gladiators having a number advantage, Reiner wanted to do so much more, but without Shu, and with Reiner being this low, this is kind of a stalemate.
Able to at least try and pick up the health back, but at this point it's just additional lock charge for Pelican. Trances have been exchanged then. What's going on over here?
This is both teams not really knowing if it's winnable and investing ultimates just to make it happen, and ended up a 3-on-3 when I last left off with Reiner, and when he was finished off, Houston Outlaws thought they had the numbers. Transcendence invested. Lastro needs to stay alive because Houston still need to get 50 more meters, and every person they lose is critical. Gladiators don't have Shu. More time for Outlaws, mainly Timmy, to get a scratch in.
Remember, Gladiators, now they can try and play to keep Houston Outlaws off the bot and off the objective. Overtime in session, and Reiner can knock back multiple people if he gets a charged up punch on the Doomfist. Even better so if he can get the nano as well, if Shu doesn't lose it in the post again.
Good scout by Mare. He knows Kevster wants to use his staircase for flank. Houston Outlaws have control of the right side. Reiner has jumped in past enemy forces. He's completely surrounded. He's been nanoed by Shu, but it's just so much pressure. Gladiators were still rounding the corner and had no line of sight on Reiner. And like, as we said, as Reiner drops, the rest are supposed to fall too, but Houston forgot about the barricade. An actual C9 in our first match.
That is a legitimate Charles the Ninth from Houston Outlaws. It was looking so good. For Sleep onto Reiner, the execution could have been so clean. And then, well, Timmy, you still believe, don't you?
Pelican.
Oh, there he goes. Yeah, that's Pelican.
Pelican or Lastro.
Was trying his best to get there. Lastro just wasn't fast enough. He's only his N. He can't overclock those little boosters he's got. He's having enough trouble keeping his feet off the ground, Lemon. Pelican went a touch too far, trying to back up Dante. At least they finally dive together, but it's at the wrong point, and they dive off of the cart.
Yeah, you know, mid-season madness, how about the multiverse of madness? Would Houston have gone all the way and maybe win the map if that wouldn't have happened? Well, after this break, they're going to find out what they can do differently after this. Okay, finally you guys can get away with C9 lol. Here's a replay of those final moments where it felt like Houston could have gone all the way and maybe win.
Yeah, I wanted the coordination on the dive, and here it comes from Dante and Pelican, but this is the last place in which I wanted it, Lemon. When no one was on the cart, oh, Lastro doing his best to just shuffle on over there, and of course, Iris there giving the Darth Vader no.
Dante like looks over like wants to say whose fault it is, but it, you know, it's being a good teammate, and he's like, I'm not gonna say anything, but that ain't on me, you know. Like, feels bad. And I know Cus is already on Twitter saying with his prediction of Houston Outlaws that he's already called that he made a mistake, but we're still at the start of the series and we have some substitutions coming in.
Yeah, we can't be having a Houston Outlaws perfect series. It's priced into the Pred, Lemon. It's priced in. And also priced in is the likelihood we're going to see a Widowmaker here, as Arns has been brought on in for our escort map. On a majority of our escort maps, actually, Widowmaker has been one of the most popular characters. Of course, on Circuit Royale, she is the flavor of the month. And on Dorado as well, very much an option. We are going to be heading over instead to Watchpoint Gibraltar, where we've seen many a wonderful Widow duel. But this was also one of the maps, Lemon, where we saw Sojourn really come into her own in the hands of Hydron on the Florida Mayhem. So there's a chance that potentially Arns could be picking up that hero as well if Kevster wants to stick to the Perma Tracer.
Yeah, it feels like as of late, Arns has only brought in to play Widow. Now, in the Soldier patch, or just, you know, in the Kickoff Clash qualifiers, I saw Arns come in every now and then to trade off on the Soldier duty. And I thought that was going to be more of the case for a lot of teams. To bring in their Widow specialist to play Sojourn, because I thought with the flick scan, you know, it can relate, especially if you're already playing Soldier with the tracking. You think Arns can play the Sojourn as well, but post Kickoff Clash, he's only played Widow so far, and Kevster either owning the Sojourn role or going to the Tracer. So I like that Gladiators, no matter which DPS they do have in, there is a level of overlap, and I mean, Arns was even considering it.
On the other side, the Texas Special, Lemon. Houston Outlaws and Dallas Fuel, our Lone Star teams, both like to play their flex DPS on the Genji. On Gibraltar, both Sparkle and Pelican, supremely talented at this hero, and I think that this is a really good combo for the overall layup of the land when it comes to having both a Doomfist and a Sojourn as well. Genji's really good at being able to follow up railgun shots from a Sojourn because they do about 130 damage. You can dash in and melee to do 80, meaning that you can often one-shot a 200 HP hero if you focus your fire. And also because you have an omnidirectional momentum with the dash, it means you can follow Dante's slams a lot more easily.
Yeah, Houston Outlaws played this very composition against the Vancouver Titans, that they 3-0'd them about a week ago. And Lastro usually was on the Lucio when it came to the attack, like you said, to just help Dante get around. But for now, thinking, okay, we want to put the Discord up on Kevster. You already see it now, making just every shot into him so critical, and maybe even one-shottable as Gladiators. They'll back away. Arns is looking for any targets, and even just putting pot shots into Dante ain't too bad. Outlaws getting a lot of cart push.
Let's talk about the power dynamic of Widow versus Sojourn here as well, Lemon. I think it's actually well in favor of the Widow because she's constantly dangerous, whereas Merit's going to have a lot of trouble here building up Railgun Charge against a Wrecking Ball and these smaller targets, so she's only going to be dangerous a small amount of the time in terms of that burst.
Looks like Outlaws are prioritizing that high ground, at the very least. You see Gladiators, I'm not going to bully them or just get too aggressive yet. With the 36% additional knockback that Hammond has, I like this choice from Reiner. And he was one of the few contenders tanks that was known for how good he was on the Hammond. And we've already talked about his flexibility. 3-man pile drive into the swipe of Kevster. And they match. And Outlaws, they'll fall back.
Kevster can now just hang out easily here within the zone of influence of the Yana, try and dive in alongside Reiner, who's got plenty of burst. However, look at that. The counter, look at these Zenyatta assists in the kill feed. Lastro's on it.
Yeah, this is Outlaws with a big response after taking so many hits at the start. Gladiators have no heals, and Outlaws shouldn't be contested at all here on point A, so I'd like the soft disengage. Now, how do you carry this into point B? Because if you lose a fight at any point here, re-engaging into this area is so dangerous. And look at that quick take of top shift. Arns didn't die though, so that's a silver lining for the Gladiators as they still hope to take space here on point B.
Yeah, Gladiator's getting these quick spawns, and this is going to be a battle for the high ground, and the battle for the high ground is going to be so important here in order to actually not get bogged down in B. I want to see huge investments from both these teams to try and play for the initial win.
Oh, Kevster at least got the kill on Iris before he was traded out, and good timing on the deflect. Lastro forced to use Transcendence just to preserve his own life and allow him to rotate back, but there wasn't a real threat from the Gladiators. Reiner is missing for the moment. Gladiators may lack some space without him to make it, and Outlaws are on top of ship.
Big investment from Outlaws, both their support ultimates, but overall I think it's worth it. Shu exposed for the moment and hands over the Nano.
Oh, the Nano Blade, and Reiner is helping out, but it's too late, and Lastro and Pelican are down. You managed to stop Kevster before he could do too much damage, so the numbers are pretty equal, and Reiner needs healing. Shu isn't there to do it, so him and Skewed are gonna stay as hidden as they can. Skewed will be forced to use Transcendence if Outlaws bring any heat, but Outlaws are starting to back away.
At least there are no secrets for Outlaws. Gladiators know where everybody is, and Arns needs to start getting these opening picks. Mines are used here, Lemon, and Kevster so low.
Just Outlaws keep using their position on top ship to get behind the Gladiators. In this case, you pick off Kevster, he got a 5-on-4. Dante has Meteor Strike, he can be aggressive with this. Kevster has found Ons, and that's the execution that this attack needed. Transcendence Force out of the Gladiators in a 3-on-5, just to see what they can find. Any trades at all. Reiner pile drive right on top of the cart, but it's not enough to bully Dante away. So the Outlaws have done more than enough work at this part of the map to capture B, and I'm not sure Gladiators have much of a recontest.
So the way that Houston are winning so many of these comps is by denying space to the LA Gladiators, by getting rid of Reiner. And that's because Reiner wants to operate in the LOS of Shu, and Dante continuously just controls Reiner with these punches, meaning that he can't get the disengage, but he's kind of priced in to his engagement.
Oh, Reiner's swapped to Winston, and he's getting bullied even more by Dante. Reiner has tried a few different heroes, but not the Doomfist mirror that I was expecting, at least not on the defense. Two-man anti from Shu. Ons is missing, though. Nothing that Gladiator can capitalize on. But wanting to get Ons in the best position here on top of this bridge, Reiner starts the dive. Dante is healed more than enough. And Reiner's nano presence was enough to just ward away Outlaws. And with that anti, it's snipe onto Iris. He's gone too. More staggers for the Gladiators.
What we need to consider comp versus comp now as Reiner swaps over to a Winston is that Merit's about to become a lot more dangerous in the hit scan dynamic. The Winston shield is going to give over so much more charge towards that railgun that it needs to be constantly worried about by Arns when it comes to taking aggressive peeks with this Widowmaker that previously was a lot harder to charge for Merit, who's also got overclock.
Dante just gets nanoed and jumps immediately onto Shu when asleep. But Dante is still could have done more, but all of Gladiators just coalesced on the one target to burst him down. Ons is picked off too, and well, the overclock wants to do the same thing. And Merit's doing a good job. He's in the backline. He's going after Skewed, and he just can't afford to lose more. And at least Outlaws recognize that. You can use Transcendence just to keep the pressure on this defense. But Gladiators are coming back with Blade. They won't have Nano. Well, let's see if Kevster even needs it. About to swipe onto Merit and looking for more. You see that Kevster's got the help of his team. Reiner's by his side, but no longer. But it's still more than enough for Gladiators to stop Outlaws in their tracks.
No nano given, but no nano needed. It was all about creating space for Arns, who could get headshot after headshot and ruin the Houston Outlaws. Unfortunately, Dante being stepped on that nano engage meant that Houston Outlaws had to expend so much more resource in order to hold the space they purchased with that blade. Lastro having to use the trance meant that they were vulnerable to a counter-attack, and now they're going to be vulnerable to a nano Winston as well. Reiner's good to go the second that Shu calls it, and that's going to be likely when Dante or Pelican use their mobility or Merit.
Dante just trying to get on top of the ship to see if maybe Ons was up there, but Ons has to be a lot more creative with pressure Pelican and Dante. But it's the initiative taken from the Gladiators, the nano onto Kevster to help him with the blade generation. And despite just a nano and an infrasight, it's a flawless fight for Gladiators.
The infrasight was really good in allowing Reiner and Kevster to actually get some forward planning on their dive and make sure that there wasn't going to be anyone who was overly threatening towards Shu, who moved up into a more aggressive position to try and pocket that dive. Now Dante just wants to try and get Iris a little bit extra on this Nano boost. It has to be the Nano Doomfist to really claim this space. Unless you want to give it to Pelican and risk a dive with a naked Genji.
Oh, look at this dive from Kevster and Reiner. Reiner's stunned up, but he's able to use Primal in time, and Kevster's been antied, and a soft disengage as Reiner takes the attention. Somehow his Merit has snuck into the back, but hasn't made much of a splash. So it's yet another fight that Gladiators take without losing a single person.
And this is happening so fast to the Outlaws. Their backline's getting crunched upon so quickly, Lemon, that Lastro is having so much trouble building up towards his own ultimate for survivability. He's just dead too quickly, can't get enough orbs out. And Arns is taking this advanced position here, still with the safety of the grapple. That means that moving forward for Houston Outlaws requires a huge amount of resources.
Another dive from Reiner and Kevster, but this time Merit stays in the back to protect his team, and Elise has negated the dive of Kevster. Skewed forced to use Transcendence because Merit's in overclock and will be able to burst through that healing, and Reiner has slept yet again. A big play for Iris to stop Gladiators as finally Outlaws can get some space.
And all 5 of them alive. Crucially, Kevster doesn't have a blade anywhere near for now, just trying to play to maintain some space and maybe a touch of distraction for Arns. Pings to reveal locations and allow for easy headshots. For Arns, though, it's yet to be a connection, needs to get rid of Merit up there.
Kevster, though, or Pelican is in range, uses the deflect in case Arns was charging up. It swipes down on that. Regita Skewed misses, but it's been nanoed, and you know the Gladiators need to sustain. It's overtime. This is the final push for the Outlaws, but they focus fire every target down at the Gladiators, who had nothing, no space, and no real estate to operate. And that's a map completion for the Outlaws. A major bounce back from the C9 we saw on New Queen Street.
The focus fire so strong there, and Lastro also being able to keep the Discord orb up on the primary target of Arns while trancing was so important. It was a risky move to Nano Skew to try and allow for a little bit more meatiness in the brawl, keep someone who could stay in close range on that cart. And while Merit was taken down in the midst of all of this, surprisingly even, when Merit was ostensibly supported by the Trance, Houston Outlaws managed to keep everyone alive in that early fight, and that's what was most important. Distracting Arns, making sure that no one fell down to Kevster, that Kevster was forced away from these alcoves, foxholes, and hiding spots where the Genji wants to launch an assassination from. And Houston, they could win out with sheer power of numbers after that.
Yeah, I mean, this is some flavors of APAC and maybe Dallas Fuel Sparkle of just bringing out the Genji on this. The verticality is so important, and it forced Ons to just have to take these creative positionings while all Ons cared about was sniping Lastro, and he took some interesting positions to get away from Weather Dante, to get a sight onto Lastro, and to stay out of range for as much as he could from Pelican. But at the end of the day, when you get pushed at the end of C, nothing really Gladiators could do. But the great initiative from the Gladiators, I mean, the time bank could have been bigger, but it was back-to-back fights. We'll see what the Gladiators can do on their offense. Got a Symmetra TP there to get them on the left side from their perspective. Just get Skewed there, actually, no one else.
Yeah, just allow Skewed a little bit more of a safer commute, I suppose, as Kevster's going to scout out what they're up against. Pelican back on the Genji, doing it Texas style for now. Reiner's actually going to be rolling out with the shield hero here, and this means that Merit's going to continue to be dangerous with the ability to quickly charge up those railgun shots off of Reiner's body and his shield.
So Outlaws conceding high ground for now, keeping control of server, that secondary position after that. Merit getting charged up, wants to do so off of the Reiner shield, or Reiner body preferably, of course. But it's going to be tough. It's all about that first pick potential where Merit has 100 charge, doesn't connect onto that. Gladiators with high ground, looking for a target to dive. Pelican presents himself, and Odds again is only looking for Lastro most of the time anyway, because, you know, you don't want to mess with the Genji deflect as much as you can.
Look how aggressive Skewed is at the moment as well, often going up onto blue box alongside Reiner, waiting to brawl. And this means that Arns is going to have a little bit of free space on the bottom here to try and find a pick if it's unsuspected.
Yeah, there just hasn't been much fighting. It's all just picks, and Merit at least stands tall for the defense. Finding Shu is big, especially that Shu had Nano, and Gladiators were waiting for that moment, but now server control may be taken away. Gladiators start that pressure, but Reiner is only gonna really want to commit once Shu gets back with Nano.
Yeah, the poke dynamic here was all about allowing access to this Nano. Now that Reiner finally has Shu's Nano at his back, we're going to see a proper fight from the LA Gladiators. Potentially a Nano Kevster being joined by Reiner. But Lastro, what's he doing? He's in the pipeline!
He said, stop sniping me, boy. Give him the backhand of the law. And Reiner slept, but he's woke and he has Nano. So Gladiators have to commit without Ons and without Shu as well, but the damage has been done. It's a 3K from Kevster. Took a long time. I mean, at least half the time make of the Gladiators to get to this point, but a cap's a cap.
Oh, Pelican moving on in alongside Dante. Can we even focus down the target, though? Dante can't even touch the car in time. Power blocking in front of it. I can stop this train, Lemon. I just got to believe in myself. But he's certainly not strong enough, and Skewed picks up 2. And now moving forward, LA Gladiators, they have the primage of impunity.
Like how Outlaws are just staying hidden too. Like, yes, you give up space, but any staggers here would be so bad for them. So, ton of ults for Outlaws. Not a Nano, but at least a Pelican Blade. At least they have, Outlaws got ship control right back, so they have access to the back line of Gladiators, and Ons is going to be fearful. At least he has sights on the left to see where Pelican's up to. Pelican's been antied, but again, just chilling out. Gladiators are playing this as passive as they can, and probably in a reactive state. Reiner has decided to fall back. He's keeping his primal. The Transcendence has been used in response to the Pelican Blade, and not a single kill earned from the Outlaw looking for more. He can be aggressive thanks to the primal. Dante, landings is missing. Now Shu as well. Gladiators being overly patient with ults in the moment that they need to win the fight the most, and Merit is just slaughtering this backline.
Outlaws invested so heavily in that fight, them in 4 ultimates, but every single one of them is so worth it, because now Ons is going to have so much more trouble finding an angle to try and exploit. You are forced in, accosted by Lastro, by Iris, by Merit, and by Pelican.
All right, Ons. Oh, he wants. All Gladiators need is to get Ons in that first pick. Now, Reiner uses Primal, and there is the Blade from Kevster. The Nano to assist from Shu. Iris is gone, and Outlaws, so they have the healing to keep this going, because that Nano was given to Lastro for the sustain, but it's Outlaws that need the damage. Dante was able to make an impact and remove the tank of the Gladiators, but Outlaws barely have any space left. Merit is a true danger in this fight, and Gladiators finally look his way. And Gladiators will cap point B and have a lot of time.
Because they need this charge-up time for Merit to be a long-range sniper, they had to give away the space that usually Kevster would have to fight through with the Nano Blade. And so Kevster could actually reach him with the Nano Blade in a much more vulnerable position, and they couldn't exploit the space that was bought.
Oh, this is a god spot for Widows. I'm excited to see what Ons can do. Pelican gonna want to dislodge him from there, including Dante. The Blade is committed. The Meteor Strike probably to follow up. But here's Reiner who swapped to the Doomfist to punch away the competition against Ons. But it's too late. Ons was eventually killed, and Reiner couldn't do that much more. Reiner's also been antied, not able to escape, and Gladiators will lose the first fight of C.
It's still a messy fight, though. Kevster going to be executed here, likely staggered. Yeah. Still has the Discord on him. And Houston Outlaws, once again, have to think about saving their strands, right, for Shu and Kevster's Nano Blade. The way that Shu can really enable this is hitting an anti onto one of these more vulnerable players. Ideally Iris, who has a lot of trouble getting away, whereas... Backstab.
That'd have been so cool. Kid. That'd have been so cool if Kevster had that spot, because that's going to be where Merit is. These Gladiators get into that position. Reiner sees Pelican around the corner, starts to make that space. Ons wants to get into the top right, because like I said, that is the god spot. But now Merit's comfortable at the top, ready with Overclock. So who's going to pull the trigger first? Shu communicating with Reiner, making sure he's up to full. There's this jump up there from Kevster, no immediate Nano response. The Nano's instead given to Reiner. He needs to take the attention away, but the counter Nano to Dante as he mirrors the dive in the backline has immediately found Ons, and Kevster set up and it didn't pay off.
Yeah, the poke was so strong that Reiner was afraid to go into the 1 versus 3 with the Nano Doom. Sure, it's the correct decision to instead try and counter-dive Dante and make sure that the main tank could be taken away, but it also means that Kevster now is going to have a Blade that is likely just going to be used to force out a Transcendence. Pelican's around the back. is going to be able to do a good bit of scouting here. And Arnza swapped over onto the Ashe.
Ooh, and the swipe right on the shoe, but he antis himself, and the Transcendence from Lastro comes out to save the day, potentially. Outlaws have used 4, 5 ults all at the same time. It converts into a fight win, but it's a quick one.
Actually get some purchase off of this blade, especially if Reiner forces out any cooldowns early using the Meteor Strike. 10 seconds remain, and it's going to be down to Reiner to get the touch here. There's no Bob to do it. Arns in the back needs to find some value from this Ashe, which thus far has been valued less.
Reiner being aggressive, positioning himself with the Meteor Strike. Dante is in the back, and Oz doing everything he can, including swapping to the Ashe just to get to a high ground, just to be safe, to have the Coach Gun to stop the Dank Fist. But Gladiators, they had a better clapback. They have 4 people on the cart. Shu is still getting back from spawn. They have limited heals, but they still have skewed. Outlaws will have one last contest. This is for the map win for Houston Outlaws to tie the series, and it starts off well. Oz is on the bridge, gets to pick away at the reinforcements of the Outlaws. It's insane what Oz can do if you let him have the freedom to do just that. Gladiators will finish the map.
The Viper strikes true, and Lemon, it's a beauty in the hands of Arns. LA Gladiators bring it 1 minute to 1 minute off the back of their swaps, and Houston Outlaws again. The same thing that was their doom on point 2 was their doom on point 3, over-investing with the diving of the Transcendence. It meant that once LA Gladiators could negotiate themselves into actually being able to control how a fight engagement worked, there was nothing to really stopgap the huge damage that's proffered by Kevster and by Arns. Houston Outlaws, they're likely feeling not great about that, but overall a quick mental reset to get back in the game. I think they probably feel pretty good about how they're going to be able to take point A here. And here's a quick look at how Arns just domineered the end of Gibraltar.
Everything you can to get any range DPS off of this, whether it's a Widow, Ashe, Sojourn. Merit was dominating this for most of the time. Houston Outlaws had a 5 ult fight, which they won, and it looked cool. But then in the last 30 seconds, Gladiators had the ult advantage. And then that's what overwhelmed the Outlaws for their backs to be against the wall. 1 minute each for both teams. Outlaws out the gates first.
Outlaws sticking to this same composition. Plenty of long-range poke. And it's going to be Reiner once again, opting into this ball. But Arns, he's the one who's changed over here. Off of the Widow, onto the more brawling Ashe. Still not the ideal close-range battler, but maybe a little bit better to deal with Genji at range by just using the hip fire of the Viper, and of course can ward away people from these angles using the Dynamite.
Yeah, the Coach Gun, because I mean, just Oz is dying constantly to Dante, so the Coach Gun at least buys you some time. You know, Shu's been hitting sleeps when he can, not around the sleep. And that's the intelligence that Dante has. Kevster's here to contest and see if Outlaws are only going to have one person on the cart. Maybe Kevster could have forced another C9. That's a big ante. Dante and Pelican hit, and Dante at least survives, but you can't say the same about Lastro when Gladiators found their window of opportunity off of Shu and have stopped Houston Outlaws halfway to point A.
A beautiful ante from Shu, you're exactly right. Guarantees the kill against that deflect is just to turn him into roadkill. And unfortunately for Pelican, he actually dashes massive push for the Houston Outlaws. And Gladiators are rewarded for their patience, not overpoking, not allowing Merit the chance to get themselves a well-charged railgun until the round was already over when they headshot Shu. And because of that, Los Angeles Gladiators, with their ability to have no ramp up in their damage like you need from a Genji, from a Sojourn, where you're waiting for people to go low before you can dash them, or you're waiting for your railgun to charge up before you can fire it. They have the instant damage of a Tracer who can blink in, of an Ashe who can simply scope in and do maximum hit scan damage as well, and that allows them to explode onto the cart to an unprepared, or at least...
And where the cart or the box of victory is past the car wash also means the defense of the Outlaws can have comfortable server control, focus on high ground, and they don't need to extend past it. So this could be a point of Houston Outlaws potentially tying the series, and Gladiators gonna bring out the Symmetra again to position their supports on the opposite high ground.
Pelican He's going to be responsible in the car wash for just keeping this car contested, making sure the rest of Houston Outlaws can try and wrap around, find other angles, and confuse the LA Gladiators. But Reiner can be a good brawler on the cart with the Winston, have a longevity of that bubble.
There's Dante going to contest the car, and he's met 4 or 5 people of the Gladiators in a tiny room. Somehow Dante escapes, Reiner is slept, and maybe Houston Outlaws want to take advantage of this moment, but Reiner is back, and Gladiators have presence on the cart. It's a 4v4 as tracers are removed, and Dante has maybe trapped Reiner in a small area, but really not looking forward to contesting that much more. He knows that it's up to the Gladiators to engage to effect. The bubble laid for Reiner, allowing his supports to get into more comfortable positions. Pelican is already forced to recall. He has the pulse bomb. He can make a play for the Outlaws. And what happened?
Husina.
Gladiators.
Oh, it may have been raised, but it's a straight flush of failure for the Houston Outlaws. Once again, distraction proves supreme. The Los Angeles Gladiators could be finished in such ignominious and humiliating circumstances. Houston Outlaws damage dealt.
It's not cute. We'll talk to our replay.
don't let me into my zone. That throne, yeah, so I'm never alone, yeah. All these people trying to box me in, I'm in whether it's on, yeah. Now they ask where I'm at, making hits that line back. I'm MJ, I'm 2-3, man, I just need some time back. I'm zoned in like defense, my life gone, no recess. But I live my best one, so I got no regrets. So I'm gone, finally back in my home. I'm working like so much, they swear I had me a clone. Can't answer my phone now, just leave it there, that tone. Ballin' can't beat me up, cause I'm back in my zone now.
Hey everyone, how you feeling? It's the LA Gladiators versus the C9 Outlaws. Take a look at the final moments, like they break down what happened.
Yeah, let's try autopsy that bad boy. Oh, it was just a disengage from Dante, and well, look at that. The poke onto Irish just kept him so onto Reiner that, well, everyone had to try and adjust to that, and the cart was forgotten in the midst of all of it. Houston Outlaws, and admittedly, Lemon, I'm also not a big smiley face. It's bloody funny, though.
It's so funny on being on this side of the field, but we were like, what happened? And to be fair, that's, again, same thing as New Queen Street. It's Dante or Pelican, and Pelican was way further back than he needed to be, but it's okay. We go next. One more map to go, potentially. LA Gladiators could still be undefeated for the moment, but we have some substitutions. Patty's back in.
Yes, Patapon does return in all of his flexible glory, but over on New Queen Street it was all about the Sojourn. Of course, Merit wants to be able to go mano a mano when it comes to that hero, but Patapon has got so much in the wheelhouse as well, especially when it comes to the Mei as well. We could see that. Dante remains in, Piggy still on the bench. Houston Outlaws, Lemon, surely. They can't C9 3 maps in a row.
I like that Houston's hype video had stand up and walk away from the objective. It's okay. Surely lightning doesn't strike in the same place 3 times. This is a very open map, and I like Doomfist on the point of Eichenwalde, but once you go beyond that, for be clean.
Yeah, and also Doomfist doesn't really provide much cover as well. Like you said, it's so open, Lemon, that if you're against a top-tier poking flag support, like a Zenyatta with the right clicks, or even just a charged-up Sojourn, with the lack of shielding and protection that Doomfist's tank does project, your supports can be very, very vulnerable when making these moves and rotations on Eichenwalde. We've seen that continuously exploited by defensive Sojourns. In particular on point A, I want you to watch out for the usual alcove you move through when your own just rotates around. She pokes out alongside the team, being more of a frontline DPS to charge up the railgun, and then slides on through that Mega Pact room to line up and wait and be poised for the railgun headshot. And it also means if Sojourn tries to get isolated there, that they could easily get a line of sight away from the assailants, pick up a mini health pack, and then be back into the zone of influence of their own supports. Goodbye,
Houston. He's like, watch out, guys. I'm bringing Tracer. So, ooh, let's try and confuse them, because Kevster won't do it. But also, we've seen the Houston Outlaws specifically on Eichenwalde during the mid-season madness. This was against the Washington Justice, which they lost this map. But to be fair, that was also with Piggy in, and they were trying a more Sigma approach to things, hence why Piggy was in. So Outlaws trying to play things different and change the result on this map.
Sigma male strategy. Houston Outlaws going to be starting off on the attack here. Kevster on the Genji here. It's a little bit interesting to me. Will the dive provides, or rather that the dash provides, and Reiner for the moment poking away. Of course, notoriously weak as a poke tank, Doomfist with a hand cannon and a shotgun.
Oh, that was a good engage from Dante already. Got Patty to half HP. There was somebody from the defense on this top bridge, so Dante's being wary of that. I like that he's also peeling to the threat is, and Dante looking for a moment to cut off his rotation. He might have knocked up Kevster, but there was someone else from the Gladiators in the back line, so Outlaws are making sure to clear everything up before they go forward. No supports for the attack of the Outlaws, and that's why you cannot let anyone from the Gladiators into your flank, because Outlaws, it's going to take a lot more time for them to access Shu and Skewed than the other way around.
Coming up on a pulse bomb, and remember, Shu and Skewed aren't going to have much in the way of ability to look at him creeping on up. Shu surely doesn't know.
Oh, good stick from Pelican. Opening for the Outlaws. Skewed is close to Transcendence though, and let's see if he can build it up in time. But it's too little too late. So the Gladiators, they still have a chance to defend this. There's a nano onto Dante, going after Skewed, forces out the Transcendence. This will allow Skewed to rotate maybe back towards the void, but not using that healing to help Gladiators deny the second tick. Reiner's around the corner. Shu was too late to deliver it, so Kester goes in without it, but he's blocked by the Transcendence of Lastro. So Gladiators, it's taking a slow amount of time to kill stuff, but Outlaws are dead in the water.
Merit may be able to get an exit pick, but it's only a consolation prize, Lemon. Houston Outlaws, they weren't able to claim a huge amount of space with an nano that they did use. Sure, it was put on to Dante, but Houston Outlaws, they'd already forced a bit of a disengagement from Los Angeles Gladiators, and Skewed decided to use a defensive Transcendence simply to keep the remaining players alive and allow Reiner to return to the fray for a final attack, and actually denied the second tick from Houston. This could prove so important with only 1 minute and 15 seconds left for the languishing Houston team.
Be an overclock moment for Merit or Patapam, but you're not even allowed the space to do anything. Kevster has been on top of this bridge, and he's so deadly once he gets back there. Because his cooldowns, you know, the right click, the dash, the melee, it can execute. And Outlaws have been having issues dealing with that, and they've had to have Dante commit to dealing with Kevster, not giving Outlaws any headway on this so far.
Remember, Kevster will return pretty quickly on that Genji, but Houston Outlaws at least finally have the overclock you were talking about. If the duel goes Paddy's way, if Paddy can take out Merit before he can really gain some proper charge off of that overclock, then Houston Outlaws might be dead in the water. But once again, Pelican, the same way he opened up the first fight with a stick onto Shu, that needs to happen again.
Oh, Reiner missed his punch. He's getting out. Patapam, though, he goes on top of the bridge, and he has overclock. Merit has his on the low ground. Snipes Kevster as he went to jump after the supports. And as the dust falls, we're left with a 3-on-2 favoring the Gladiator. Shu was still alive, but for really how much longer? He got stunned up, and it looks like he's okay. He's able to get some healing. Gladiators just holding down the point for reinforcements. It's Outlaws that have to touch. Merit is there. No C9 today, but it's only death for him. And who is next? It's Pelican. Lastro's at the back. Iris is still getting back. Dante has to be next to touch. Pelican's forced to use recall, and he's not going to live for much longer. Dante now has to face a Transcendence and 4 members of the reinvigorated Gladiators, who are seconds away from almost full holding the Outlaws, who only got 66%. That's an ouch.
The watch point desk, Lemon. They were touting Reiner as a possible Rookie of the Year candidate, and I know that I may be getting ahead of myself here. I may be allowing the North American Contenders fanboy to shine through, but that was also an MVP performance as a doorman, not allowing Houston Outlaws any space for Merit to really make use of that overclock, forcing everyone into these tiny little alcoves, not allowing for these sightlines to be established, because the second that they peak, Reiner and Kevster would be right on top of them. I love the aggression that Gladiators have to answer Houston Outlaws' resources like the overclock. And then Gladiators, they don't all focus on the point in the overtime game. They send Reiner with a nano to deal with the reinforcement solo, messing with their rotations with slows, with knockbacks, and in the case of Lastro, with an instant execution of a combo of ability and hand cannon shots. Reiner is proving himself to be an absolutely diabolical Doomfist.
Just with the Kevster Genji too, like that was so disgusting how Gladiators initiated almost every fight, and whenever Outlaws actually got to move or play the game, they got picked on rotations, and that was just Kevster having positioning on that top bridge and Outlaws not able to ever get him off of that. So, and we'll swap.
And we're going to talk about how aggressive Kevster could be as well versus the Houston Outlaws, but the thing is, they aren't continuously missing Kevster. These are owl-level aimers, and Shu actually takes so many risks with his positioning to keep them pocketed. Oh. What is this? What?
No way, Lastro wins that! No way! No way! You just got drop-kicked by a Zen like that. Ryder, please, please.
Oh, that is an uninstall moment. That is a Lastro in the chat, kind of, you know, Lastro just being like, kick Big Doom. That's that's a moment for Houston Outlaws to take penance, think about their sins, and wonder if, okay, maybe we can't pull this kind of thing against the Houston Outlaws. They are still a 6-2 team, and Skewed on the Brigitte here is going to be able to provide some long-range support for both the Tracer and the Doom.
Well, there's some initial rotations from Gladiators on that left side. You see that Dante trying to cut him off, be the doorman, as you call it. The Gladiators are safe in the mini-pack room, and Outlaws don't want to immediately get up in, but Gladiators being on the left side, now they have options. They can take the left or the right. Now it's options for Reiner to access Iris and Lastro, and they want to play as far away as they can. See how they're in the back house? And you see that Iris might want to hold sleep for the Reiner engage, and the Pulse should finish him. Reiner is down. Gladiator doesn't need any type of pick to make this winnable, but it's Merritt who's just dipping right now, and Pelican is pressuring the supports. Scude's on the brig, and he's been nanoed, I believe, but because of the anti, there's really not much survival left of the Gladiator supports, but it's because of Patapan's double kill and Reiner being back in the picture that Gladiators could turn this around at all. They started the first tick. Outlaws still have 2 members on the point, make it only 1. It's Dante left to touch, and no one is home for the Houston Outlaws, so the Gladiators will sweep 3-0.
And Shu stays alive long enough there to get the nano onto Skew on the ropes and off of that point. Outlaws, this is certainly not the game that they wanted.
What?
But it is certainly a cause for maybe a touch of ego on the Los Angeles Gladiators. Thus far, Lemon, their competition had been fairly easy. Up against the Paris Eternal, up against the Vancouver Titans. These teams are still yearning for that first win. We're battling up against our incumbent champions in the LA Gladiators. And finally, Gladiators have gone up against a more serious competition and look bloody good.
Didn't mean to laugh at you. Nothing you said was funny. It was just, I wasn't
wow,
sure.
Thanks. That's worse.
You were being smart and whatever. I was paying attention to Patty. I wasn't sure if they were hyping up Patty's haircut or Patty's sojourn, because I thought that was really impressive. And I've already said that the overlap that the LA Gladiators have on each other's hero pools make it so they can flex to literally any composition. And the fact that Reiner can pick up all of those is fantastic. And, you know, he did look a lot more human today, but Outlaws had to commit every single person, almost to the point of getting off the objective to go after Reiner. But that was a 3-0 sweep. I was not expecting this to go this way. I don't think anyone did. But we do have one player who is a constant threat, not only on the Tracer, but also the Genji Shu. We swapped at the last second because those antis were insane.
These antis were everything, Lemon, and while we did see big moments from Kevster and from Patapan and from Reiner, it's for one person keeping them alive all the time. Short nano availability and giving it over to Scude, which rolled over into an active rally. That was the first domino that eventually fell into the collapsing of the Houston Outlaws on this map.
Yeah, Shu, your player of the match in the neutral fights. Kevster just looking good in the kill feed, all thanks to Shu's nano. So I'm just having a Genji complex right now. You always got to shout out your Ana player, and I mean the stats speak for itself. Very low deaths per 10, ton of healing, and Shu makes it happen. You know, the only thing is nanoing Skew to save him. That's takes a lot of guts. Sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't. But Shu's the guy you count on to save the fights time and time again.
As our reigning champions, Los Angeles Gladiators have finally gone up against a team with an impressive record. 6-2 the Houston Outlaws were, as were the Los Angeles Gladiators, and a 3-0 sweep is about as big a statement as the Gladiators can make. We will have this penciled in as the Gigabang of a 5-mapper, the 6-mapper of the day if it could have gone that far with Overwatch 2's first draw, but it was not to be, Lemon. However, we are far from done here at the Overwatch League. We've still got one more match for all the lovely people at home.
Oh yeah, it's going to be the Paris Eternal versus the Boston Uprising. That's coming up next, but we're going to check in with the Watchpoint desk. Maybe we'll get an interview. We'll get some reactions to the C9, and we'll see you after the break.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Upper Deck, the official trading card of the Overwatch League. And by TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier.
Welcome to Game Break, everybody. We're here joined with Skewed from Los Angeles Gladiators. Skewed, congratulations on the win. Now, I think this is my personal opinion. I don't know if anyone else thinks this way, but after watching this match, I do feel like Gladiators are looking a lot better. You guys were never bad, but compared to last week, I think today you guys are back to the Gladiators that we know and love. Were there any changes in the past couple days that you guys have made? 자, 첫 번째 질문은 제 개인적인 생각이긴 하지만은 뭐 제가 봤을 때는 글래디가 뭐 항상 잘해왔지만은 저번 주 첫 주 이 스테이지 첫 주 때보다 오늘 경기에서 원래 우리가 알고 좋아했던 글래디의 모습을 다시 되찾지 않았나라는 생각을 합니다. 지난 며칠간 좀 어떤 변환점이나 뭐 이런 게 있었나요?
솔직히 말하자면 변환점은 솔직히 없었고 저희가 일주일 내내 스크림 성적이 좋지 않았거든요. 근데 오늘 일단 좀 잘하는 방식을 좀 위주로 그냥 경기하려고 노력했고 아무래도 오늘은 휴스턴이 좀 실수를 많이 한 것 같아요. 저희가 잘했다기보단.
Right. Honestly, nothing really changed for us. I think one thing that I do want to point out was that during the past week, our scrim results weren't very good. I think that was one of the reasons why we looked a little bit more shaky. But so coming into today's match, we really wanted to just play what we're good at and just be confident in our play styles. But overall, I think the reason why we looked a lot better today was because I think Houston made a lot of mistakes in today's match. Made a lot of mistakes, right, Costa? 네, 옆에 계신 커스타 선수도 동의를 한답니다. 좀 많이 미스테이크 많이 만든다고 하셨는데. Yeah, all right. One more question for you, Skewed. Right now, in stage 2, we're seeing a lot of, Sigma competitions or Doomfist and a lot of poking competitions in general. Which team do you think is benefiting the most currently with this meta? 두 번째 질문 좀 메타에 대해서 여쭤보고 싶습니다, 스큐드 선수. 지금 뭐 시그마도 나오고 좀 둠피도 나오고 지금 포킹 조합 이런 조합들이 좀 많이 쓰여지고 있는 현 메타인데 지금 현 메타에서 제일 좀 득을 보고 있는 팀이 있다면 어떤 팀이 있을까요?
지금 생각나는 팀은 두 팀 정도 있는데 쇼크랑 저희 팀, 글래디. 네, 아무래도 저희 팀은 제가 또 브리기테도 할 줄 알고 젠야타, 바티스 다 할 줄 알아서 조금 이번 메타에 득이 많이 된다 생각하고 쇼크는 아무래도 예전부터 투서필을 많이 쓰고 있고 지금도 투서빌러로 아주 재미를 많이 보고 있는 상황이라 아마 두 팀이지 않을까 싶습니다.
Right. I think I could just two teams coming in my mind who are benefiting the most for this current meta. First one, of course, being us, Gladiators. The reason being is Brig is one of my signature heroes. Not only that, I could play the Zen and the BAP, so I think it's a lot of big help to the team for the current meta. Another team is the San Francisco Shock. They have been known for the two sub-healer compositions in the past, and even now they're Francisco Shock and the Los Angeles Gladiators. All right, Skewed, that is it for the interview. Thank you so much for your time and congratulations on the win. 자, 이걸로 인터뷰 마치겠고요. 감사합니다. Okay, thank you. All right, he understood English. Nice. All right, bye.
Thank you so much, Skewed. Thank you so much, Danny, for getting the inside scoop. And Casa, we need to talk. I don't know what you smelled in the air when you left your house, but it was not a dub.
It was a double C9. That's what I was smelling.
There was something.
I got the wrong scent. I went the wrong direction.
Yeah, it happens. Well, let's talk about what actually transpired and what went down in that very match. Do you want to summarize it, or do you want to take a moment?
I'll hit on my thoughts just quickly before I pass it on. Before I break out into tears. Honestly. The two C9s are the big things that stand out in this match from the Houston Outlaws. Obviously unfortunate, but they did play it somewhat close. The big concern that I had for the Houston Outlaws, it just felt like that Pelican on this Tracer and Lasher on the Zenyatta, they were just struggling to get anything done. Every time they tried to move around the map, they were getting punished, while inversely, Shu and Skewed felt like they were able to stay alive for free, able to get a ton of value. So some questionable things coming out from the Outlaws, but it didn't look, seems to be shoring up a couple of those mistakes that we saw from them in the first weekend of this mid-season tournament. So the Gladiators, you have Arns hitting shots like this, you got Kevster popping off in the Genji, you got everything going for you right now. There's no reason to doubt the Gladiators, and I'm sorry, I never will again. Gladiators until next time that I smell something in the air.
Yeah, I do think though that like for the most part, this was a 3-0 for the Gladiators, but like this is just a go next for the Houston Outlaws. Like you need to forget this match ever happened. Just move on. There were a lot of mistakes in this matchup, but like they were one-offs. They were not like, oh, they repeatedly made like mistakes in their judgment of their ultimates or like their compositions. Like the only compositional change perhaps was Merit didn't get a ton of value on Gibraltar on the Sojourn pick because Ans was just able to snipe on the Widowmaker from so far away. But that was about it. I think for the most part, this Houston Outlaws team, they continue to improve. It's a good meta for them. They're a good team and they can compete with some of these better teams around the league. They just need to shore up some of these mistakes. And if you just forget about this matchup that it ever happened, like they're not gonna go practice C9s. That's just like an intuitive.
Maybe they should.
That just like you nail it and like they.
Yeah, I mean this is as far as the loss goes, this is forgiving because you don't have to go dig deep to see what you did wrong, right? Like I think the mistakes were obvious for the opposition, for them they themselves. So I'm pretty sure they can clean that up. That is doable. That is clean upable.
Yeah.
Even though it's Houstonable as well at the same time. But
spaghetti can always be picked back up.
Exactly. It doesn't need to stay on the floor forever. You can, in fact, clean your floors. That is correct. Yeah, exactly. Sure. I wouldn't eat it anymore. Either way, we do have one more match today coming our way, and we were split on that one as well. It's going to be the Boston Uprising going up against, of course, the Paris Eternal. Now, you both went with the Paris Eternal. Give us a quick thoughts on why you think this is the team to come out on top.
I just really like the direction they've been going. Wub and Dove, I think, has been a positive look for them, and they just look reinvigorated. And I think with the way that they're trying to play the game, I like how they're switching, their tanks around. They have Daan and Vestola coming in and out based on certain compositions. It looks good. While I think the Boston Uprising, as much as they're also on the upswing, it just is not as consistent for me. It feels like they need their individual players to just step up massively rather than good team play. So if I think Paris come in, they play a good team game, they play together, and the Boston Uprising can't match that toe for toe, I think Paris Eternal have the edge. But it's close. Like, this could go either way.
Yeah, I mean, Danny has full faith in Punk.
that looks like a man with full faith, right?
Yeah. Usually not too well, actually, and that's okay. You win some, you lose some. That's just the name of the game, right? And there's only one way to find out where we're going with this match, and that is, of course, to get the action started. We're almost done with the entire week already of action, but we have one more in store for us. So let's hope it's a good one. Let's hope it goes to distance. Let's hope Paris and Boston are going to give us a show. And for all the action, we're going to have Lemon Kiwi and Lake Day walking you through it.
Thanks so much. So, yep, we're hoping for a long series. Like we used to be kind of the happen. Paris Eternal versus the Boston Uprising. Hey, maybe the Las Vegas Eternal. Avala, coffee sometime? Because I'm feeling it. They're close by.
Just a brief invite to Nevada there from Lemon. Both of these teams, Lemon, are on the uptick right now. It was less of an inspiring beginning to our 5th season here in 2022 for both the Eternal and the Uprising. But Uprising, actually both of these teams are kind of iterated by somewhat culling their rosters a little bit. Like Marvel and Striker have moved on from a Boston Uprising. We kind of looked to those guys as being the superstars of this roster at the beginning of the year, but honestly, Boston look a little bit better without them, and Marvel's looking pretty good over on the Valiant as well. On the other side of Eternal, we've lost Glister and Naga, and we instead have Wub and Dove. So let's have a look at that starting roster. It feels like every week Paris Eternal are going to get so much more powerful, Lemon, because they kind of get this exponential buff of integrating new DPS and being able to build up synergy at a level where a more established team has already got that, and so they can't improve at such a clip as Paris can. On the other side as well, when I look at the tank, Daan and Vestola, this is an excellent meta for them. Vestola is a beast on the Sigma, and Daan, I think if he leans towards the Wrecking Ball, is going to be a fearsome force.
Yeah, Daan's especially a highlight when it comes to European tanks, of just one of the few contenders tanks at the time that was able to play Winston and Ball and all these other things. And then, like, you bring up Dove and Wub. Well, together, Dove and Wub make Dub. Okay, so they've already gotten one dub recently against the New York Excelsior, but unfortunately, Paris Eternal I don't think are in the running for the midseason madness, but Boston Uprising mathematically can still get in, but it's about getting win after win. Take a look at the starting roster for the Boston Uprising, because it will not be Itzel starting on Control, it's Punk this time.
Yeah, the de facto leader, in my opinion, Punk. I think that Boston Uprising, having faith in Punkin, is sort of admitting that Punk and Faith, they're their most consistent players. They are the backbone. They are all reliable. Boston Uprising can always count on Faith to be making the right play when it comes to the ultimates with the rally, or when it comes to choosing where to put the whip shot on the Brigitte. And Punk, he's kind of like a mental leader as well, stopping things from spiraling out of control when things go wrong. Punk has been crafted by President of Gaming, Huck, into being the leader that Boston need when they're in the field battling their foes.
And it's an obvious fact, I think, even to the team, that Punk's leadership is such a boon to them. But when you talk to the coaches of Boston, as we did in the past, it's about integrating every single person on this team, including Itzel. And of course, you're not going to bring in Itzel in Control, because I forgot it's also a push week. So we're going to do Queen Street as our first map. And Punk has been that flex pick, like maybe not to the level of Reiner, but still something that Boston can lean on, whether it was the Sigma. Punk even learned the Doomfist at the start of the stage, but it's the DPS of Boston I've always had the concern with. Even at this point in time, they just haven't embraced Sojourn whatsoever. It's been more Valentine May enabling Punk's Sigma Brawl.
Yeah, the DPS of both these teams are L tier Lemon, but maybe not world class just yet. However, we are in early days when it comes to seeing Dove and Wub at this level of competition, both from freshly picked up from North American contenders last year. Of course, our Contender Summer Series is starting off soon, so make sure you check out the Path to Pro on Twitter if you want to know more about that and have some Overwatch 2 competitive action. Boston Uprising, Victoria and Valentine. These guys are well suited to fast dives if they do want to move into it. Victoria, not the best known for the tracer, but has been picking it up more recently. Classically, Victoria has been more of a long-range hit scan specialist, to the point where on Uprising Academy, Victoria was basically brought in to play Ashe and Widow, and that was about it. And instead they had Stella come in to play the tracer. But now, Victoria, you have garnered my attention, my son. Is that a Sojourn?
Oh, praise the infant in the sky. Victoria's playing Sojourn. I've been waiting for Boston to finally get with the meta, get with the times. Now, Valentine, we know the May's coming out to enable Punk Sigma, and that's through those isolation walls. Wub and the rest of Paris Eternal have had time to incorporate the dub. Wub and Dove together. Dub's on the tracer, something that's in his hero pool. Maybe not his best known hero, but Paris, I'm excited to see this new look from them.
Oh, Druid's already so low. Must have caught maybe headshot but wasn't fully charged from Victoria or something. But finally, Dove has made their way around the back. Look at the positioning of Paris Eternal, though. If Dove moves in too quickly, they're not going to be well supported on this dive.
Well, as that first May wall keeps Don trapped in, he's using the statue, though, to protect himself as Wub hoping to connect onto anything. He's getting charged up really quickly, as he would playing against the Sigma, but it's Dove that has found his way into the back line. He's keeping range from Fate to dodge a shield bash like he did just now, but against 1v3, even Dove can't do that. So Boston, gotta take a bit of a rest. Punk has been slept through the bottom side of the screen. Dredro still kept statue position, and he's dead.
Dredro as well, very much well known as a main support Lemon, not a huge amount of expertise when it comes to the flex supports like Liana, so this could be a couple of growing pains for Dredro when it comes to assuming the escapability that he previously has had on the Lucio and on a newly mobile Brigitte with an extended range on that shield bash.
You're just seeing the difference that the Valentine May has already made for Boston's push, how aggressive they can be. Because if, Punk doesn't have Matrix, doesn't have a shield, you gotta have a defensive May wall. You can use that offensively or defensively. Boston taking shelter, though, in the pack room. And there's a pulse connected on the something, probably shield. So Boston are chilling for now, and Paris have robbed Boston. They have taken the bot. I see you.
I'll be taking Timmy, thank you very much. Nano, good to go. Yes, it's a full hit. Punk should die here. But I don't know if anyone can really get on top of him. It's only Dove there. unfortunate here, and there's Dove getting picked off on the exit by Victoria, and honestly, Lemon at the moment, Wub is not doing as well as I would think on the Sojourn, considering that he can charge up for Railgun much more easily off of Punk's shield.
That's just going to be a straight mechanics thing for the Sojourn. Not going to use the jump too aggressively here. It's up to Dawn to start that engage. Speaking of which, he's been nanoed by Dredro. Paris Eternal making the space, forcing Boston to the tiny room, as Dawn has already got a stun on the Crimzo and Fate, forcing out the rally from the Faith Man himself. Now Wub, he's got the overclock. He sneaks to the left side, but he locks eyes with Valentine, who slows him and forces him back. So Wub didn't really spark any inspiration from Paris Eternal, but it did spark out a Transcendence from Crimzo. Paris are going to match it back with their own Transcendence. So we're left with a stalemate of a 4-on-4 on the barricade, where Punk has a Gravitic Flux, so if Boston want to keep investing, they can.
One of the most ult-heavy fights we've seen in a while, and despite Paris Eternal's major investment of 4 ultimates, they still can't stop the acquisition of a checkpoint here for Boston Uprising. And it feels like at the moment, Paris Eternal are a little bit toothless when it comes to being able to move past what they are garnering with things like biotic grenades. Punk finally dies, but we need to see greater follow-up on the setups that the supports are giving.
We've kind of seen like Atlanta Reign's approach to Doomfist and how good it is at bullying Sigma teams. I specifically remember the Atlanta Reign Dallas Fuel match where just, wow, Hawk just destroys Sigma players. And I think Dawn is starting to do the same thing. Once he gets aggressive and isolates Punk, it's going to be hard for him. But you got a lot of healing with Faith by your side, and apparently you got the range. You got the damage. Boston with the first pick, a 58-meter hold so far, too, is good for Boston. See statue control for both teams. Dawn misses his first punch. Gravitic Flux to catch Dawn, and a great Maywall to assure of that kill. Boston are ahead in the fight again.
Dove took a risk at the beginning of that fight to try and get the last percentage point towards the Pulse Bomb. Now it's ready to go, Lemon. Onto Faith would be ideal, but I don't think... Oh, wait, Crimson just rolls onto it. Oh, no. That's not very Canadian of you.
Yeah, you can kick a lot of things away, just unfortunately not a Pulse Bomb. It would be hilarious.
It's a puck, Lemon. It's a puck. I'm going in.
It's my homeland, but Paris Eternal, I mean, only have a 1 meter finally with this fight win because of Dove. You force Boston back, so we're getting sub-meterage here for Paris.
And Dawn, how do you try and make this engagement work? You are so easily warded off by Valentine, but you've got to use your punch to engage and your seismic slam to get out, which is kind of inverse to the usual engage.
Oh, Dawn, he got rocked and socked. He's got nanoed and he's got barely any friends, but at least he got healed up, so I guess someone likes him. Wub now has the overclock. He's got top control, but he got overwhelmed, and a good rally from Faith keeps himself and his team up. Victoria's going to benefit from that overhealth, and just a resource balance all favors Boston. And with this fight win, they'll get Timmy back to the barricade, and Boston can extend this lead even more.
There's only one CC on the Boston Uprising. That's the Accretion, and Punk is hitting it reliably on Dawn to shut down these engages. Shutting down a punch that would have put Punk well into enemy territory. At least Victoria's taken out early here to try and stop the momentum.
Sojourn is something he's going to be learning, but at least Hanzo can be that budget. The Maywall's a bit easier, but Dove has stuck into the back. There's no support from Boston. Crimzo didn't even have time to use Transcendence, and I bet he would have, because that momentum push for Boston would have been so important.
The wraparound finally works. However, still a huge surplus of distance that Paris Eternal have to make up here, and they don't really have much more than the Transcendence to deal with the Gravitic Flux.
Dawn got walled off by Valentine, and you're continuing to see the value of the May and the value of mechanics. Having mechanics in Overwatch is so important, by the way. Boston! Well, it's a 4-on-4, and they got Blizzard advantage. Valentine Wub is still hanging around. Dan presents himself, and pairs are going to re-engage. The Nano goes to Dawn, and he's already bullied Punk away. And Valentine thought he was safe. He thought he was hidden. He could have engaged with the Blizzard, but he's quickly shut down. Now he got rid of Wub. Oh, the double punch. Me likey. Dawn doesn't like being dead, though, so unlucky. That's what happens when 3-4 people look at you, but that's the focus by the Boston have. They're going to even go for more. Valentine just continues to Maywall people off, and 67 meters to 52. Paris have made this close, but Boston are back in the driver's seat.
I think Dawn overplayed his hand there, assuming he was going to get the Meteor Strike. Was 10% away, but a good amount of damage was mitigated by Faith just being able to tank a good amount of it. Now Wub needs to try and find an opening pick. For Wub, it's been a pretty weak performance when it comes to opening frags. Hasn't been much of an entry fragger for his team, but maybe can make the difference when it comes to the Dragon Strike.
Oh, the Dragon Strike. This will flush out the rats, but didn't find the perfect angle. You split Valentine out from the support, and the Maywall from Valentine just closes one of the doorways.
And this is bad news, Lemon. Wub's going to take so long to return to the fray if he stays on the Hanzo. Going up in the air is an interesting choice from Faith, who's now moved over onto the Baptiste, hoping that the Immortality field is going to be just what's needed to stop Paris Eternal in their tracks. However, I don't think it works great against the Doomfist.
Well, Nanos work well on Doomfist. You got a kill out of it, so I'm just going to go with the evidence on my screen. Dreidro almost died and somehow preserved his own life, had to anti himself, and now Dawn gets to be aggressive, but too far away from the Meteor Strike to keep committing, and wonder what if Dreidro couldn't keep him up, and without Dawn, I mean, Paris Eternal don't really have the engage. They only have Poke and
by Crimzo, but it's just an equal exchange. Both of these teams taking such haphazard and potential to clutch Roots Lemon. Every player is kind of playing their own game at the moment, and here comes the Overclock to try and put the finish on this one.
Yeah, 4-on-3 for Boston, the Overclock. Oh god, the dome on the Wub. Paris Eternal supports are on the high ground. They're going to support Dawn as best as they can. He's got the Meteor Strike. He's finished off Victoria, and Dawn's looking for more. He's now bullying Punk. The barricade in the hands of Paris. 67 meters to 57 with 30 seconds remaining. And Paris Eternal have to go big, but you don't have Dreidro. And Dub is getting slow heals by Khan. He'll have Overclock, but what kind of positioning is Dub going to want to take to enable this?
Everyone forced to share one Harmony orb to get the healing. Khan is 18% away from the Transcendence, and that could be an ultimate if it decides everything. On the other side, Boston Uprising, if they can set themselves up on the high ground, and Dove gets solo blizzarded!
He's the threat. He had the Overclock. Boston recognized that, and they deal with Wub too. Paris have no damage. It's up to Dawn to keep this overtime alive. He'll have all the attention of Dreidro, because Transcendence came out too late. The burst of Boston is too strong, especially with the Sojourn. So overtime will go away. Dub may get a one last touch, but the Transcendence is too much. Boston looking fantastic, and they'll take your map number 1.
What a discovery by Valentine, finding the Sojourn, using the solo Blizzard after seeing the slide get used, thinking, there's no more escape for Sojourn. You are the clutch factor in this next fight. You could be the one to make the difference, so I must remove you, I'm afraid, my friend. Boston Uprising. There were concerns on the desk that if they didn't work together, they could get rolled over by this renewed Paris Eternal, but Boston Uprising seem to have finally been able to stir the sauce the right way and mix together into a coherent team that are covering each other's backs, Lemon.
Yeah, and shooting people in the back. I mean, that was a fantastic Sojourn by Boston and Paris. At least they made the swaps when they knew they weren't comfortable, but the Dragon Strike, not enough for Paris. But after this break, we'll find out what else Paris got up their sleeve.